Hello and welcome back to the series of videos for Dreamweaver. And in this chapter of videos entitled Styling Your Pages with CSS, we're going to delve a little bit deeper into what cascading style sheets are and the types of cascading style sheets we can have. But before we do that, let's just go into Dreamweaver and reset our workspace. So what we need to do, here is our Dreamweaver, and we want to go over to Designer and either click on Designer or go Reset Designer. So I'm going to go and do that now. And the next thing I want to do is to create a new site. Now before I do that, all my Dreamweaver content is on the desktop. So I need to go to Site, New Site, and I'm going to put in here dw04 because that's the chapter we're in, Lessons. And that's going to be the name of my website. At the moment, it's not where I want it to be, so I'm going to go and click on the browser folder, into my desktop, Dreamweaver, and I'm looking for Dreamweaver 4. And that's where the root folder is going to be, and I'm going to go and do choose, save, and here we have the files that I need. Now I'm going to just do a little bit of modification here, making sure that I can see the full title, and then I'm going to move it in. And I'm going to be happy with that for the moment. Okay, so last chapter we looked at was adding text and images. And in that chapter, on the second video entitled Creating Hyperlinks, there is a PowerPoint there which talks about what cascading style sheets are and how they link to the language of HTML, Hypertext Markup Language. So go back and have a look at that video to remind yourself about what CSS and HTML are and how the two are linked. As a quick reminder, CSS is a language alongside HTML to format web page content, such as text images, tables, and form elements. CSS creates the rules or style instructions that elements on your page will follow. So let's have a little bit of a trip down memory lane, so to speak, and see what happened before we had cascading style sheets. So what I would like you to do is to go and open up font tags list. Let's go and do that now. Okay, so what we have is this. I have gone and put it into split, and I've given the code window a lot more room, just so that we can see the full extent of this code. Now, what you notice first is the font tag. So this here, and the closing font tag here. And the font tag sets the font, the size, and the color. So here's the font, the size, and the color. But you can only use the font tag only once. And as a result, a lot of repetition occurs. So here we see for beats, we're using the font tag for beets. We can't use it again, so we've got to repeat and repeat for cucumbers and eggplants. So for example, if I go into the design page and press return and type in the word peppers, well, you can see that the word has been put in the code window, but it has no formatting compared to everything else. So what I would have to do would be something like this. I would need to go and copy and paste, and then I would need to substitute eggplants for peppers, and then refresh. Now that is an awful lot of hard work just to go and put one extra item into a list, say. Imagine you've got to put lots of items into a list. That is really time consuming. So let's see if there's a better way of doing that. The best way is using cascading style sheets and to use cascading style sheet rules. So we're going to go and get rid of the font tag. We don't have to save it. And instead what I'd like you to do is open up the CSS list. And so that one is going to be this one here. And you'll notice that the design view is exactly the same we've just had earlier. But in this case, in the code window, we've got no font tags, and instead we've replaced those font tags with cascading style sheet rules. So the benefit of that is this. I can press return and I can go and put in peppers, and you'll see that the formatting is immediately applied to the addition to this list. So if I go and put in something else, we can keep on going, and there is no time wasted copying and pasting in extra code. So what we have in here is the HTML code. It's in an unordered list, and in that unordered list we've got these items. The rules, the cascading style sheet rules that are linked to this unordered list are found here. And you can see that there are many properties we can add to a cascading style sheet. So we've got font, we've got size, we've got weight, and we've got color. And again, to remind you that the cascading style sheet rules are bound within the style tags, which are in turn bound within the header tags. Also in the header tags is additional information, which you can see here. Inside a header tag, we can put the name of the web page. And we can also put in the header tag any metadata, such as keywords in which the web page can be searched. Now we can also quite easily change the rules of this particular cascading style sheet. So, for example, I can do this in a couple of ways. Here we have our cascading styles panel, and in that we have our CSS rule. So if I go and click on the list, you can see that we have the properties here exactly like those in the code view. So for example, let's say I want to go and change the cascading style sheet rules here. And I'm just going to, as an example, just change it in a couple of places. So for color, I can go in here and I can go and click a different color. And that will be reflected here. Similarly, I can go into the code view and I can go and not necessarily go and put in the hexadecimal value. Why not let's just type in the word blue and we can get it there. And I can do the same again. I could change yellow here and press here, And over here, I could even change the font size. So it's all very easy once you've set up your cascading style sheet rules to go and modify them in several different places. Let's come out of the CSS list HTML web page and go and open up the next one called Style Places. Okay, so what we have here are 3 examples of how we can create cascading style sheets. Let me highlight the top one here, which says, "Hi there, I'm styled with an inline style." What does inline style mean? Well, if I just move that as much as I can for the moment, and let's just focus on this here. Now, what we have is actually a cascading style sheet rule. We've got color, we've got font, we've got size, and it's in the same line as the actual text itself. An inline style sheet is really quite defunct because as an inline style sheet, just like the font tag, you can only use it once, which defeats the purpose of a cascading style sheet because you want to be able to call upon a CSS at numerous times for different fonts or texts, for different paragraphs. You don't want it just to be a one-hit wonder. So an inline cascading style sheet is not the best way to go. So let's look at other options. So what we're going to do now is this. Let's bring this back and let's have a look at the internal style sheet. Here is an example of an internal style sheet. These are the ones that we are most familiar with, having used them in the Organic Utopia website. The downside is we can only use these CSS rules for that particular page. So if we had a 10-page website, we would need to copy these rules 10 times if we wanted uniformity across the whole website. If we wanted to make changes across the whole website, we would need to make changes to the CSS rules for each page. So here we have the text, and the text is related to the CSS rules up here. So this is HTML right here, and here is our CSS rules. So again, internal style sheets are useful to a point, but by far the best way to go is using an external style sheet. So let's go and have a look at that. Okay, so this is an external style sheet. And what you can see is that we have a class called green text. This is the name of the style sheet, the external style sheet. So let's go and have a look at this in more detail. We have here the navigator, and if I click on the navigator, we can see that the style sheet is green text, and if I hover over it, you can see the properties for this particular external style sheet. Now, if I want to go and modify an external style sheet, all I need to do is double click here, and up comes the code view for this external sheet. And it's exactly the same as I demonstrated for the internal. We can modify it nice and easily. If I click on the code view for the external style sheet, we can go over to the CSS panel and we can see that it's changed there. And as with anything else, I can change it in both places. So I could increase the font, and I could have done it over here, but you can see it's reflected here, and I can just as easily change the color and press refresh. So in this video, it's been a lot of more theory than actually creating and building a web page, but it just gives you a flavor of what CSS styles are and where they can be located. We looked at the beginning of the video and what life was like before cascading style sheets. We used those font tags, and those font tags you could only use once, and you'd have to repeat for every single line, say in a bullet list, the formatting you would want with font tags either side of all of that. Then we looked at internal style sheets, the ones that we're most familiar with. The downside of internal style sheets is that although we can use them repeatedly, we can only use them repeatedly for one page. So if we've got multiple web pages, we're going to have to copy this internal style sheet rules for each page, and that becomes time consuming and cumbersome. But the best way to go is using an external cascading style sheet, where we can put the rules in one place and then link that page to all the other web pages in our website. And we will look in later videos of how to actually go and do that. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.